We've seen so many times how murder can change lives. The events of a day, an hour, or a minute can have lifelong repercussions. But there is normally a passage of time that goes along with this event. But sometimes the event occurs in the briefest of moments, and the repercussions are just as devastating. Today we are looking at a phenomenon that has just struck very close to home for me. And this is the phenomenon of the one-punch murder. And this happened just down the road from where I sit right now. And the court case has only very recently wrapped up to finalise the legal aspects of the repercussions. And here I will look at what led up to the punch, the punch itself, and the fallout from this one simple but devastating action. This is the death of Kelvin Evans at the hands of Christopher Cooper, and this is Murder of Crows. I have talked many times, especially when covering Welsh cases, about the industrial history of South Wales, including the importance of the mining and the steel and tin plate industries, and how the erosion of these industries has led to areas of deprivation and poverty where there were once thriving towns and villages. But today, before we look at the modern event that brings us here today, we look at an area of Wales where these two industries came into something of a conflict. The area I'm referring to is the small town of Gorseinon, which translates into English as Einan's Marsh. The history of Gorseinon in terms of a community location really begins in the 19th century. It first appeared on maps as Gors Einon in 1815, and then later in its modern spelling by around 1830. In 1840, there were only around 250 people living there. There were two churches that served the community, one of which was central to the local heritage where I grew up, since it was visible on the marshes from where I attended primary school. And this was St. Tylo's Church, also known as the Church on the Marsh. And when I was but a nipper, this church was moved stone by stone and rebuilt in the St. Fagans National History Museum in Cardiff. And it's a museum of Welsh history. And I actually have a painting of the church by my favourite primary school teacher as one of my most prized possessions. The area grew in importance and population as industries were drawn to the area. First by the local discovery of coal, and later with the building of a tin plate factory. A coal drift was opened in 1846 and became known as the Mountain Coal. This coal was transported on a narrow gauge railway line to nearby Lougher, where it was loaded onto barges and sent to Llanelli for transportation all around the world. The drift mine continued to be worked until 1900, at which point a shaft was sunk. Now known as the Mountain Colliery, it produced at its peak over 200,000 tons of coal a year, with a workforce in excess of 900. And this was finally closed in 1969. In 1886, the Gravesend Tin Works was built, and many houses were built around the area to house the workers. The Gravesend Steel Works opened in 1890, but in 1891 all tin plate workers in South Wales were involved in a 7-month strike, meaning the times were very hard for the workers at the time. Now at this time, Gorsinan had 2 public houses. The Gorsinan Hotel, which became more commonly known in the area as the Bottom Hotel, and the Station Hotel, which was known as the Gip or the Jip. It was said that the Bottom Hotel was for miners, and the Jip was for tin plate workers, and it was a mortal sin to encroach on the territory of the other. Then in 1892 the West End Hotel was built, and the Mardy was built in 1901, bringing the number of public houses to 4, though the Gorsinan Hotel is no longer a public house today. I believe it's a restaurant. The Station Hotel most certainly is. And it's there we go to look at a decidedly avoidable incident that occurred there on the 26th of May 2023. At this time, Gorsinan had a population of around 8,000. But after well over 100 years, the Station Hotel building is somewhat tired and run down, much like the town itself, following the death of the coal industry and severe reduction of the steel and tin plate industries. This particular pub has a mixed reputation, as this Facebook post suggests. But nonetheless, it is still a local community hub and popular with many of the locals. On the 26th of May 2023, they were hosting a karaoke session, and this was where the issues appeared to start. 53-year-old Tracy Francis from nearby Llanelli, which, as you know, is my current hometown, she was at the karaoke and was belting out her version of the Pink hit song Who Knew. But not everyone apparently received the performance in good heart and good spirit. Allegedly, and this isn't proven, 64-year-old Kelvin Evans made some comments about Francis's singing being off key. If he did actually say this, then this was perhaps unnecessary, and while it was probably meant to be a private joke, it was overheard, and the comment made its way to Christopher Cooper, the 38-year-old boyfriend of Tracy Francis. Now, quite understandably, Francis was probably upset by this offhand remark, and this led to the perceived insult and affront festering within Cooper until he decided to take action. And the action that he would take would have massive repercussions. At around 9:45 p.m, Kelvin Evans was walking around outside the pub before heading off to meet his partner. It was then that he was hit from behind by a single punch from Christopher Cooper. He was punched with such ferocity that his head hit a nearby wall and he fell unconscious to the ground. The attack was caught on CCTV. Kelvin was rushed to hospital after the attack, where he remained in a critical condition. After a month of fighting for his life, he finally succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced dead. The investigation into the attack led to Tracy Francis also being arrested, with her being charged for assisting an offender. It was alleged that she was fully aware ahead of time of what was going to happen before going to significant lengths to prevent Cooper being apprehended. Francis was aware of what Cooper was planning to do to the victim and helped him by disposing of clothes and trying to book a hotel in a bid to hide away from police. Cooper was charged with murder, which he denied, although he did admit the manslaughter of Kelvin Evans. Cooper and Francis were tried as co-defendants at Swansea Crown Court in December of 2024 in a trial that lasted 2 weeks. Cooper was charged with murder, which he denied, though he did admit the manslaughter of Kelvin Evans. Cooper and Francis were tried as co-defendants At a trial that began in Swansea Crown Court in December of 2024, in a trial that ultimately lasted 2 weeks. Andrew Jones KC, prosecuting, said that Mr. Evans left the pub in High Street, Gorseinon, to meet his partner, but never made it, with Jones also saying the reason why was because he was assaulted by Christopher Cooper. He was punched with such force that it led to his death on June the 26th. He was punched cowardly from behind with such strength that he remained for almost a month in hospital before he succumbed to his injuries. His death was the direct result of the actions of Cooper. He murdered the defenseless Kelvin Evans. He was doing nothing more than setting off to meet his partner. The punch delivered from behind left the 64-year-old floored. Mr. Jones went on to say that Cooper and co-defendant Catherine Tracy Francis were seen on CCTV quickly trying to leave the area in May of 2023. Mr. Jones also told the court that Francis was fully aware of the seriousness of what Cooper had done and was actively assisting him. During a statement given to police, Francis admitted being at the pub with Cooper and claimed that Mr. Evans threatened to glass her if she carried on singing off-key during the pub sing-along. How much truth there is to this, we don't know, but I find it somewhat hard to believe. Christopher Cooper was found guilty of murder and was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 16 years. Tracy Francis was found guilty of assisting an offender and was jailed for 2 years. Judge Geraint Walters KC said that Cooper had dealt a cowardly punch delivered from behind and shown no remorse. The judge said, "The motive for this wanton violence was the perceived feeling that your partner, Tracy Francis, had been slighted by Mr. Evans and his partner simply looking at each other and saying something to each other. You perceived this to be about Tracy Francis' voice as she used the karaoke machine. It festered in your mind from that moment onwards, and that was enough to trigger the intent. As an act of revenge, nobody was going to slight you or anybody connected with you without paying a price for it. He was also satisfied that Francis was aware of what Cooper was planning to do to the victim, and helped him by disposing of clothes and, as I mentioned earlier, trying to book a hotel in a bid to hide from police. During his conclusion, the judge said that Francis was somewhat infatuated with the killer and continuously lied throughout the trial. Kelvin Evans' 92-year-old mother, Maureen Evans, stood in the dock and faced her son's killer and his accomplice as she gave an impact statement. Holding back tears, she spoke about losing her son, with her saying, "You never, as a mother, expect your children to go before you. I thought at the age of 92, all my children would be there when my time came." Kelvin was so helpful and one of the best sons you could wish for. I look at his picture every night and every morning when I wake up. I miss him so much. In statements read to the court, Kelvin Evans' family described him as kind, funny, and loved by all who knew him. Janet Cross, who was Kelvin Evans' partner, said that they had previously planned to retire to Sicily, and she obviously wished that they had done that before the previous May. In court she said, "The thought that Kelvin is no longer with me is simply heartbreaking. Kelvin was the love of my life, and he was in my life and the lives of my 2 children for 25 years. Not only was he a second dad, but he was their friend. The murder of Kelvin has left me with horrendous nightmares, sleepless nights, and days and nights filled with inconsolable grief. To add to the hurt, I have had to sit in court and listen to the lies told by the defendant. Both appear to be utterly devoid of empathy or emotion for what happened to Kelvin as a result of their actions. Christopher Cooper can only be described as walking rage. He not only killed Kelvin, but he killed a part of me too. In a tribute, Kelvin's family said, "We are devastated at the tragic and senseless loss of our wonderful, loving, funny son, brother, uncle, and friend to so many. We are trying to come to terms with this whole situation and ask that we are given time to grieve in private as a family." speaking after the sentencing, Nia Sturgis of the Crown Prosecution Service, or CPS, said, "This case shows the devastating consequences that can arise from just one punch. What started as a trivial issue for Christopher Cooper resulted in a senseless act of violence and a tragic loss of life." Cooper punched Kelvin Evans from behind, giving him no opportunity to defend himself. The Crown Prosecution Service presented strong evidence to demonstrate Cooper's intent, resulting in this conviction. Our thoughts and sympathies remain with Kelvin Evans' loved ones.
I am pleased to see that justice has been done in court and Christopher Cooper has received a life sentence, having been found guilty of murdering Kelvin Evans, who was 64 years of age at the time of his death. Christopher Cooper's decision to punch Kelvin cost Kelvin Evans his life and has done untold damage to the lives of his family and friends. Kelvin Evans should have been able to return home safely to his family following a night out in Gorsine, Swansea on a Sunday night in May last year. Instead, his family will never be able to forget that night. I hope that they receive some comfort from the sentencing and that they can now begin to grieve the loss of Kelvin. Taking drugs and drinking too much alcohol affects people's decision making, and there could be severe consequences for making poor decisions when under the influence of drink and or drugs. It can very easily and quickly make people vulnerable to become a victim or a perpetrator. Christopher Cooper took another man's life and now faces many years in prison as a result of the decisions that he made that Sunday night. As in this case, and so many others in the past have shown, just one punch can have a completely life-changing impact upon both the perpetrator and the victim. In a split second, someone can become a killer and someone can be killed. If you ever find yourself in this situation, myself and my colleagues urge you, please, to just think about the potential consequences of assaulting somebody, take a step back and walk away. I urge people to think before you act and just walk away.
39-year-old Christopher Cooper delivered a fatal punch to 64-year-old Kelvin Evans. The altercation unfolded on May 26, 2023, after Cooper misinterpreted a glance and comment between Evans and his partner during a karaoke session, where Cooper's partner, Catherine Tracy Francis, was singing. Judge Geraint Walters at Swansea Crown Court described the murder as stemming from an overblown sense of offence. Cooper, feeling that his partner had been mocked, harboured this grievance which led to a violent outburst. As Evans was leaving the pub, Cooper assaulted him from behind, knocking him unconscious with a single punch to the head. Despite immediate medical attention, Evans succumbed to his injuries a month later. Cooper, who boasted about his strength with the chilling phrase, "These bad boys," referring to his fists, showed no remorse throughout his trial. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 16 years. His partner, Francis, aged 54, was found guilty of assisting an offender after evidence showed she searched for hotels post-attack and did not alert the authorities. She received a 2-year sentence, having lied during the trial. The court heard from Evans' family, painting him as a beloved figure who cherished his time in his camper van, Bella. His mother, Maureen, aged 92, expressed her profound grief, while his nephew, Mark Jones, condemned the act as cowardly and the subsequent deceit as disrespectful. This case highlights a moment of misjudgment escalating into irreversible tragedy, underscoring the consequences of unchecked anger and misinterpretation in social settings.
And that was the story, very local to me, that shows how a perceived disagreement can escalate to murder, especially when substances like alcohol along with rage, are added to the mix. In a single punch, Christopher Cooper caused massive damage to Kelvin Evans. Damage that he could not recover from, compounding the devastation his family were already feeling at the ripple effects of this single punch. In a matter of seconds, lives were changed irrevocably, and Christopher Cooper now faces an extended period of time behind bars. This video is, of course, dedicated to Kelvin Evans, who did not deserve to be attacked in such a cowardly and clearly disproportionate way. He was a good man and was cherished and valued by the family that are still coming to terms with the fact that his life was ended over something so inconsequential. I send them love and my deepest condolences. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. Any case suggestions that you might have can be sent to Dr. Steve Murder of Crows at gmail.com, and I'll put that up on the screen, and it will be in the description box as well. Please like, share and subscribe to help me continue to grow the channel and the very lovely and beautiful community that we have here. With that said, I'm Steve. This lump of fur is Samson, isn't it? And we will see you when we see you.